Good day everyone, I am Rachel Jean Culpa, the last reporter of Group 4, and today I will be continuing the discussion of the chapter 27, which Ms. Mirana started, The Brave New World, Communism on Trial. And here is the chapter outline. First, the disintegration of Soviet Empire. Second, the East is red China under communism. And lastly, serve the people Chinese society under communism. The Soviet Union, officially known as the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, began with the Russian Revolution of 1917, which led to the overthrow of Russian provisional government and establishment under the Bolshevik Party, which led by Vladimir Lenin. The Soviet Union officially founded on December 30, 1922, and it encompasses a vast territory spanning the Eastern Europe, Northern Asia, which included the 15 republics, which are the Lithuania, Armenia, Russia, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, and other 10 republics. First, the disintegration of Soviet empires means falling apart of a big group of countries known as the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic or USSR. This happened because those countries who belonged to USSR wanted more freedom and independence. On the death of Konstantin Chernenko in 1985, party leaders selected the talented and youthful Soviet official Mikhail Gorbachev to succeed him. Following the death of Konstantin Chernenko, the leadership of Communist Party of Soviet Union needed to select a new general secretary. Mikhail Gorbachev was seen as a talented and youthful Soviet official, emerged as a chosen successor. So, Gorbachev aimed to bring new ideas and reforms to Soviet Union. And to know more about Mikhail Gorbachev, here is his brief biography. Born into a peasant's family in 1931, studied law at the University of Moscow and graduated in 1955. In 1978, he became a new member of the Central Committee in Moscow. 2 years later, he became a full member of the ruling Politburo. In March 1990, he became the Soviet Union first president. Ruling Politburo is the leading body of the Communist Party of Soviet Union, which held a significant power over the government and country's policy. In Moscow, Gorbachev realized the immensity of Soviet problems and crucial need for reforms to transform the system. During his visit to Canada, he discovered that the Canadian farmers worked hard for their own initiative, and he realized that they'll never experience it for 50 years. So on his return in Moscow, he recommended measures to transform the system. The cornerstone of Gorbachev's program was perestroika, or reconstructing, the beginning of a market economy with limited free enterprise and some private property. Perestroika, it was a plan in the Soviet Union to change how the economy worked, allowing some businesses to operate independently and letting people own property. This was a big change from the government controlling everything and giving people more freedom to start their own businesses. As a result, a key component of perestroika was glasnost or openness. So this encouraged citizens and officials to openly discuss both the strengths and weaknesses of the country. This allowed transparency and discussion of the issues that were previously kept quiet. End of empire. The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics was a truly multi-ethnic country containing 92 nationalities and 112 recognized languages. The most serious problem of Gorbachev stemmed from the character of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was a big group of countries with many different kinds of people. There was 92 nationalities and 112 recognized languages. So this shows how diverse and complex the country was, which made governing it was a big challenge. As Gorbachev released its iron grip, ethnic groups throughout the Soviet Union began to call for the sovereignty of the republics and independence from Russian-based rule from Moscow. As Gorbachev loosened his tight control over the Soviet Union, ethnic groups across the different countries started demanding more autonomy and independence from Soviet government in Moscow, which was dominated by Russians. On March 11, 1990, the tiny Soviet Republic of Lithuania announced its independence from Soviet rule. Lithuania's announcement of independence was a move against the authority of the Soviet government in Moscow. It was driven by a combination of factors, including the dissatisfaction of the Soviet policies and the reforms initiated by the Soviet leader, which is Mikhail Gorbachev, who allowed the greater political openness. So, the Lithuania was the first Soviet republic declared their independence. On December 1, 1991, Ukraine voted for independence. So, Ukraine held a vote that people in Ukraine decided that they didn't want to be part of the Soviet Union anymore. On December 25, 1991, Gorbachev resigned and turned over his responsibilities as a commander-in-chief to Boris Yeltsin, the president of Russia. Weeks later, Mikhail Gorbachev, who was the first president of the Soviet Union, stepped down from his position. By the end of the 1991, one of the largest empires in the world had come to an end. Now, the question is, why did the Soviet Union collapse? According to our book, some historians argue that the ambitious defense policies adopted by the Reagan administration forced Moscow into an arms race that they couldn't afford, which led ultimately to the collapse of the Soviet Union. Also, according to most knowledgeable observers, they believe that the collapse of the Soviet Union was primarily a consequence of the condition inherent by its system. Lastly, according to my research at Britannica, the collapse of Soviet Union was a result of a combination of economy, political, and social factors, including the internal weaknesses of Soviet system. The East is red, China under Communism. The young revolutionary Mao Zedong was warning his colleagues that the road to victory in its struggle to build a communist society would be arduous and would be inevitably involve acts of violence against the class enemy. Mao Zedong told his colleagues that building a communist society would be hard because it involved fighting and violence to achieve their goals. In essence, Mao Zedong was preparing his colleagues for the challenges ahead and emphasizing the need for determination and readiness to use force. In 1926, Mao Zedong adopted a moderate program of political and economic recovery known as New Democracy. So, Mao Zedong proposed a plan called New Democracy, which focused on fixing the economic and political problems. The transition to socialism. In 1963, party leaders launched the nation's first five-year plan, which called for the substantial increases in industrial output. This plan aimed to boost industrial production. This was a step towards shifting the economy from farming into focusing more into industries and factories. In 1958, at Mao's insistent urging, party leaders approved a more radical program known as the Great Leap Forward. The Great Leap Forward was a big plan for quick changes in China. The goal was to boost the industries and farming faster, but the plan faced many challenges. That's why it didn't work. The Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution. Mao launched China in a new forced march toward communism called Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution lasted for 10 years from 1966 to 1976. It was a time in China when Mao Zedong wanted to make sure that everyone followed the communist idea. So during this time, there was a lot of chaos because everyone were forced to support Mao Zedong ideas. From Mao to Deng. Mao Zedong died on September 1976 at the age of 83. The pragmatists led by the Deng Xiaoping seized power from the radical and formally brought the Cultural Revolution an end. When Mao Zedong passed away, Deng Xiaoping and his pragmatic supporters stopped the chaos of Cultural Revolution. So they started focusing on making the China's economy more modern. The four modernizations are industry, agriculture, technology, and national defense. The four modernizations were Deng Xiaoping's plan to improve four important areas in China. Industry. This modernization aimed to revitalize China's industrial sector by introducing modern technologies and management practices. Deng Xiaoping advocated for the development of heavy industries such as steel, machinery, and petrochemicals, as well as the light industries like textiles and consumer goods production. Agriculture. So Deng recognized the importance of agriculture in China's economy and sought to modernize the sector to improve food production, rural living, and standards. Reforms included the introduction of households' responsibility systems, which gave farmers more autonomy over their land and production decisions, as well as the incentives to increase productivity through mechanization and better farming practices. Technology. Deng emphasized the need for China to catch up with the advanced technological capabilities of Western countries. This modernization involved investing in research and development, promoting innovation, and acquiring foreign technology through partnerships and collaborations. Lastly, the national defense. So Deng Xiaoping recognized the importance of a strong national defense and safeguarding China's sovereignty and security interests. So Deng also sought to enhance China's defense industry to produce advanced weaponry and military technology domestically, reducing reliance on foreign imports for defense needs. The familiar slogan, "Serve the people," was replaced by a new one repugnant to the tenets of Mao Zedong thought, "Create wealth for the people." The slogan "Serve the people" was associated with Mao Zedong's ideas, which emphasized the duty of the government officials to prioritize the needs and well-being of the people. However, during Deng Xiaoping's leadership, the slogan was improved into "Create wealth for the people," which reflects the changing priorities and policies of the Chinese government from centrally planned economy to a more market-driven one. Incident on Tiananmen Square. So in May 1989, a student protester carried placards demanding science and democracy and end to official corruption. During this time, students gathered in Tiananmen Square to protest against the government. The signs with the messages demanding science and democracy means they wanted the government to focus on modernization and give people more freedom to participate in politics. They also protested against the corruption among government officials. Serve the people, Chinese society under communism. The Communist Party came to power in the 1949. Chinese leaders made it clear that their policies would differ from the Soviet model in one key respect. Chinese leaders said that they wouldn't follow the Soviet Union ways exactly. They wanted to have their own ideas and method to show that they are independent and could make their own decisions. In the mid-1950s, when Mao Zedong had argued that more labor would result in higher productivity, China had been attempting to limit its population growth. Mao Zedong believed that if there were more people working, the country would produce more goods and become more prosperous. However, China was also trying to control how many babies were born because the country's population was growing too fast. So there was a contradiction between Mao Zedong ideas. By 1970, the government had launched a stringent family planning program including education, incentives, and penalties for non-compliance. The Chinese government started a program to help family limit the number of children they have. They taught people about the birth control and offered rewards for those who followed the rule and punished who didn't. In the early 1980s, the program had some initial success and population growth was reduced drastically. In 1980s, China's family planning program began to see positive results as population growth decreased significantly. This means that fewer babies were being born each year so that the total population didn't increase as quickly as before. China's Little Emperors. Orphan families are restricted to a single child in conformity with tradition. Sons are especially prized and turning them into spoiled little emperors. In cities, families are allowed only one child. Boys are highly favored due to tradition, receiving more attention and privileges, which can lead them to becoming spoiled and acting like mini emperors. And that should be all. Thank you.